Bolts Block Party, welcome into another edition here. Thanks to our friends at High Lie IPA for powering the Block Party. I am your host, Greg Wolf, joined by my brother from another mother, Braden Coburn, and we are very excited to have our guest here with us this afternoon. Jackie Redmond is here with us. She's in town. And we can't really tell you what she's doing in town, but she's
you can.
Oh, we can.
Yeah, you
well,
totally
I'll let
can.
you tell them. What are you doing in town, Jackie? What are you here for?
So I'm here for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
Reasons are twofold, but the first reason is the Jackie Redmond Show came out here to interview Victor Hedman. So we just hung out with Victor Hedman. There may or may not have been puppies involved, which I feel like is an automatic view.
Yes.
You know, like if you know there's going to be dogs in the mix, you're like, I don't care what he says.
Facts.
There's puppies.
Yes.
So yeah, we just went for a walk with Victor and
cool.
asked him about the season and a little bit about who he is outside of the rink, which is kind of what we're trying to do with the Jackie Redmond Show. Is
Love it.
Talk hockey, sure, but like, who are these people? What do they love? Who are their friends? That sort of thing. So it was fun.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
I feel like you can't go wrong. Big, tall Swedes and puppies, like
It's a winning mix.
And it's such a down-to-earth dude too. Yeah. So yeah, his dog might be more famous than him at some point. Harry is quite the charmer.
He's got T-shirts in the stores. He's got hats. Like he's got gear now. It's insane.
I mean, I don't have gear. Do you have gear?
I do not.
Yeah. See, Harry's doing better than you and I.
Really
So I mean, who's winning here? Harry Hedman is winning. And then I'm also here for the Royal Rumble, which is happening at Tropicana, and then Raw is happening here at Amalie on
Congratulations to you, by the way, on all the success. Obviously, we're very familiar with your work with WWE and the NHL and TNT and all that, but I want to take it back.
Oh, okay.
To where it all started, because I, heard that you were a rink rat at a pretty young age, and you've got some hockey journey in your journey. Your sisters, your family. Talk to us about the upbringing and how hockey became a love for you.
So I'm from Nova Scotia originally, but I grew up in London, Ontario. So I always tell people, for me, like, girls hockey was pretty much an option from the time we were like 6, 7.
Yeah.
So my sister played a little bit of boys. I started out as a figure skater, and the reason I started playing hockey outside of being a diehard Leafs fan and my dad having me watching hockey every other day with him, was going to a hockey tournament that my sister was in. Okay. And my sister is a small person, and someone speared her goalie. And my sister's response to that in said tournament, I think it was a semifinal, I think they were trying to get to the final, was to spear this person who was twice her height and way bigger, like Roman Reigns' spear.
Right.
And everyone got all crazy, and they ended up winning the game in overtime, and then they won the whatever. So I watched all this transpire, and I was at an age where, when you're going to these tournaments, you're playing mini sticks in the hallway, the parents are having it. It was just a really fun experience.
Sure.
But when I saw my sister spear this person, I'll never forget, I'm sitting in the stands with my mom, and I'm like, I want to play that. And my mom actually, a couple days later, was like, no, seriously, I don't want to figure skate anymore. I want to play hockey.
Wow.
My mom actually cried. She was devastated because she loves figure skating. And I was okay. I was decent at it. Like, I had a personal coach and was competing and stuff. But I was like, that looks way more fun than doing a routine and being yelled at 2 hours every morning. Right. So then I switched to hockey. Grew up playing that until I left for college. So I played all over London, Ontario, southwestern Ontario as a kid for the London Devilettes, the Blue Water Hawks. My sister was way better than me, way better. Literally my high school team, I was there before her. My sister's younger than me. Okay. I won Rookie of the Year. I had a great couple of years. And then my sister came. I would have been in 11th grade. My sister would have been coming into high school in 9th grade. And she tried out for the team, and I'll never forget that Mr. Clayton, the coach, was like, you didn't tell me your sister was 10 times better than you. And I was like, yeah, I know, she's really good. And I'm like, I'm good, but she's really good. So hockey family through and through.
I can just imagine Jackie, the first week after she's figure skating, and instead of she's doing a spin, and it's just trying to punch girls, trying to get her aggression
that's
out.
That's not gonna fly in this sport.
I'm trying to get suspended from figure skating so I could play hockey.
Legit though, it was my sister and I are both super feisty, so we got to play together only on our high school team because our ages, we never got to play competitive together. We got thrown out of the same game once. I got hit from behind, and my sister went into the corner throwing punches. Both of us out of the game.
I feel this is a great time to ask the brothers question. Yes. So we've had a lot of brothers, whether it's been the Shens or the Radishes.
Yes.
if there was a fight between you and your sister, a hockey fight,
Ooh, okay.
who's winning?
Okay.
Would you fight her?
Now,
Let's say.
Would you fight her, and who would win?
Right.
If this was like we were on separate teams,
Yes.
like on the ice type fight.
Yes.
Yeah. She
Okay,
runs your goal.
100%.
She runs your goalie.
Her and I are very similar in that we both hate to lose.
Sure.
We hate acknowledging that people are better than us at something. Like we are competitive and feisty in nature.
Okay.
So I feel like we would both, without hesitation, fight each other in a game. Like not
Which is
even
way different than the guys. The guys are like, I would never.
I feel like we would, but also like we would scrap differently. I mean, I wouldn't try to hurt her or anything,
Right.
but we would for sure throw down.
Wow.
I think
Just kidney shots, you know?
Yeah, like we would just
Stay away from the face. Stay away from the face.
It'd be more of a wrestling match than like an MMA fight,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, but I think
It's
you know,
intent. It's intent.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've admitted that she was a better player than me, which is absolutely true. That's shout out to Marcy, the Marcinator, her nickname.
Nice.
Her hockey nickname.
Love it.
So she was better than me at the game, but I think that I was a better skater
Okay, fair
overall. And so I think I would be able to handle the balance during a tilt better than she would, if that makes sense.
It
like
does.
I think I could knock her off her feet a little easier.
So we got the Mercenator. What's Jackie's hockey nickname?
Oh my God. I had my hockey coach called me Taz, like the Tasmanian devil, because I was very feisty. I was a feisty player. Like in some cases it was a bad thing, but I think it's what made me, valuable to my team in a lot of ways. Cause I had no hands. Like I was a great skater, I had a decent shot, terrible hands. I could make a pass, but like stick handling around anybody, forget about it. It wasn't happening.
Just pure grinder.
I was banking off the boards and trying to beat the defenseman to the puck, like that was what I did. So
that, wow, that's awesome.
I'm sorry, that was very long-winded.
That was a great
it.
story. That was great. So
I'm legit. If I just keep talking about my never was hockey
What about
career.
championships? You guys win some championships?
My sister won a lot.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't.
Not you.
Yeah, my
Okay.
sister won provincials and did all that. My sister, and I can say this publicly because I've said it. I've brought it up to this person. My sister at one point was playing in the same. I mean, my sister pretty much played as high as you could play almost her whole career.
Okay.
And so her claim to fame for a while was that she got knocked out cold by Natalie Spooner, who is
wow.
a Canadian Olympian.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact details, but I think Spooner was in the penalty box or something, and my sister ended up on some sort of partial breakaway, and Spooner came out of the box.
Collided.
This part I remember. No, clotheslined my sister.
Oh, damn.
Out cold.
Wow.
So I kind of want to transition. I know we were going to talk about this later, but
Oh.
with the new PWHL,
Yep.
Yeah.
what would that have meant to you guys growing up
my gosh.
to see those girls like where they are now?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I can't even imagine. I can't. Cassie Campbell was somebody that my sister and I idolized as a kid. She was the captain of Team Canada at one point. She was on cereal boxes for us. So we always loved her. Haley Wickenheiser, of course. But for I always hesitate in saying this because I don't want people to get angry about it. But my sister was the girl that was like, I want to play in the NHL. Like when she was young, like she would say that. And I was the older sister that was like, you can't do that.
Right.
Girls don't play in the NHL. Like that was me. I was that older sister, like being like, you can't do that. Like you can play in the Olympics. And so I think for her, it's something that's actually pretty emotional for her. Like that would have been a path that she would have for sure tried to take, I think, if it was there, not just playing, but I think just being involved in a league like that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's great for girls that play hockey and that want to play hockey as a legitimate profession, but also for little boys at home to see women's sports on TV, to see women calling, women's hockey or covering it or coaching it, like whatever it is. Like, I think it's just as impactful for the boys watching at home as it is for the girls, because those boys will grow up to be men who, don't have an opinion about women playing professional sports. It's just something that's always been there for them since they were 5 years old. It's normal.
Right.
And so that's what I think is going to have a huge impact in the long term. So, I think it'd be huge for us. I think it could have changed, paths maybe for my sister. I wasn't good enough to ever do anything, but
I love the Haley Wickenheiser, Sean of Saskatchewan shout out. I gotta go there.
What
'cause-
a legend! Legend.
But I last year I got a chance to cover the Dream Secret Tour when they were here in Tampa. And I've watched the women's game at the Olympic level, the World Championship.
Yep.
But being up like right there in person, I could not believe how
technical,
how good it was.
Yeah.
It was physical. All the games were amazing. The girls were awesome. They were so humble, and they were just so focused on growing the game and getting this league to where it is now.
Yeah.
And when you watch on TV and you see the crowds, it's really remarkable what they've done in the first year.
Even you talking about it, I'm getting chills.
Yeah,
like
no,
it's crazy.
It's awesome.
It's so good. And I think too, there's like a misconception about the women's game because for the most part, people only have seen it every 4 years at the Olympics. And like Canada versus USA, everyone gets up for that women's game for my whole life. Like, but now I think people that maybe haven't watched a lot of women's hockey or don't have kids or friends or family that ever played, girls or women's hockey growing up, there's like a misconception that it's like not at all physical. And that's not true.
It's
hockey
crazy.
can be physical without fights and checking, right? Like that's the whole thing. So anyway,
actually,
I could go on and on.
No, I
It's wild.
hosted the Olympic training when they were here at Wesley Chapel, the training facility, because they have Olympic sheet of ice up there, and was actually, like you just said, in hosting that, got to watch them every day and how they trained. And again, for me, it was more about the technicality. They were literally stick to stick on their passes. They knew where each person was going to be. It was remarkable. Again, the speed and the technicality that those girls had. It was unbelievable. So it is great to see how much the game has grown on the women's side of things. But let's fast forward. So we got the hockey journey right. So then you went to the University of Guelph in Canada, journalism major. You did some
college.
You did some Weather Network work before sports. Was that?
So there's never been Weather Network in my journey. I don't know if that's fake news on the internet.
Okay, this
maybe
is why I'm asking
I did work at Rogers TV in London, and so I volunteered there. So I didn't get paid. I was in school and then I was out of school, and I did a show called Forest City Living, where I was legitimately an on-air reporter. Not being paid, right? Like. Actually on TV, cable TV, no pay, which I understand. It's not shade. I'm just saying, like that was the story. Everybody relax. But I remember the first piece I ever did. So I would just go around London, the Forest City, and do different like community things, stories on what was happening. And one of the things that they had me do was like a hot yoga class. So one of my first on-air experiences, I'm literally dripping sweat because hot yoga was like new at the time. That's how old I am. Anyway, I'm so glad that tape, and it would have been a tape, it does not exist. Okay. So
I love the hot yoga. I remember the first time I did.
Hot yoga's great.
Oh, but the first time I went, I'm like on the mat and I'm like one of the warrior poses or something like that. And I'm a sweaty dude. I'm already sweating. And I just remember looking forward and it was like a fountain coming off my index finger. And the guy in front of me is like, excuse me, like you're sweating all over me. Like it was just my finger was just going down his back. And I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I got to get out of here. Like maybe air conditioning is in my future.
Wow. Disgusting, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I love that.
So then that led to you making history because in the Gillette Drafted 3, the search for Canada's next sportscaster, in 2011, you became the only female winner in the history of the show's 5-year history.
Yeah, that was my big break, was Gillette Drafted.
Talk to us about that.
I want Gillette Drafted to get rebooted, to be honest with you. It was a great show. So picture American Idol.
Yep.
For sportscasting. So they went cross country, did auditions, they came up with a final 10, and then those 10 people would compete in broadcasting type challenges. Okay. And there was a panel of judges, and they would basically have a winner of the challenge and then a bottom 3 and then the line on the show. Okay. The guy who would deliver this line and who was the main judge on the show is now the president of Sportsnet. Wasn't at the time, is now Greg Sansoni. Would say you will not be drafted, right? And then you would have to do like the dramatic leave of the studio. Oh wow. So I was on season 3 of that show, and I didn't audition at one of the locations. I had actually been auditioning for a hockey show. Okay. That I did not get. So I thought, that's it. It's over for me. Like that was my one shot. Nothing's happened. And they called me like a month later and were like, hey, would you do this reality show? And I was like, do I have to talk about other sports? Because I know a little, but I don't know. Like I can't talk about soccer. Right. And they're like, you just do it. And I was like, okay. So I did that and I won, and there was immunity. Like it was kind of like Survivor a bit for sports casting. So if you won the challenge, you would win an immunity from the next elimination, regardless of how bad you did.
So they take your like golden mic away, like where you have to put in your golden mic, you know?
They should have done that.
Great.
But like you would have challenges. Like the first one I'll never forget was a teleprompter read, and you would be in pairs with people that you're competing against, and you would have a read and they'd have a read, and there's a walk and like a turn to another camera.
Okay.
And I actually missed the turn. Ooh. So I'm reading the prompter, and I have no experience in a studio at this point, aside from my Forest City living experience. And so the light goes off and I don't realize that I've missed the turn. It dawns on me like 10 seconds later, and I laugh and I turn and I continue my read thinking, this is the first challenge. I've already messed up. I'm definitely in the bottom 3. Right. I mean, there was another person that did pretty bad. So I was like, maybe she'll go home instead. But I thought
please
for sure.
Please suck.
I thought I was rooting for everyone's downfall. But trust me, like I'm not a good sport, I guess. But
the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not rooting for you to succeed. Like, please fail so that I don't go home. And I remember thinking I was going to be in the bottom 3. And like, to peel back the curtain, like it's television, right? So you shoot the challenge. There's like a couple of hours that goes by. They're figuring out how to shoot the elimination and who's going to get. So like you wait, right? There's a lot of time where you have to wait.
Sure. And
I remember almost being in tears, like I messed up. Like I'm going to go home. And I go in and they do the whole deliberation, and I ended up winning the challenge.
Wow.
And I only tell this story for people watching that want to get into this stuff. What the judges said was, we learned more about you in that mistake, that you handled it and carried on with such ease. They were like, we learned more about you in that mistake than we could ever learn from a perfect read. And so I won the challenge, won immunity. I was on cloud 9, but that is also what turned the entire cast against me because they were like, she missed the turn. How are you giving her a win right now? So controversy. I don't know.
Big X on you for all
that.
But that again, that shows that in a live TV moment, because as you
which
know,
you understand,
100%,
right?
100% that things can happen, as you do as well. Like, to be able to transition and not skip a beat and just go right, and nobody's none the wiser. That's a huge thing in that world.
So like sport, I'm sure they gave you guys some criticism.
Oh, yeah.
How did you deal with criticism? Because sometimes when someone's telling you like, hey, you're not very good at this, or you didn't do this well, you know, that can be tough sometimes.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I did win 3 of the first 4 immunities, but the first time that I did not win a challenge, I think it was the 3rd challenge, and it was a highlight challenge. So you were in teams again, so you're working with other people, and you were talking over like plays of the week. And so it was all highlights, and I did terribly, terribly, because I was paired with someone that did comedy on the side and was more of a performer, and I was not. And so I kind of got sucked into like trying to be funny. And when you're trying to be funny, it's only awkward.
So like
That's
the
only
dynamite
thing.
goes boom.
Yeah. You know? Like that was me. Like it was really bad. But to answer your question, it was hard because for me in that situation, I was like, this is my opportunity to get a shot at this broadcasting thing. And so when you start hearing the things that you're bad at, you're like, oh, it just messes with you mentally. All of a sudden you're in your head when you're doing some of these challenges. And I'm sure playing, it's the same thing. It's like someone tells you, oh, like work on this, and then you're working on it, but then you're thinking about it in the game maybe, and you're like overthinking it. But I think that show and dealing with the criticism in real time from the judges, but then as it aired from viewers watching who also would chime in on Twitter and have their thoughts about different challenges, it just prepared me for the world that we're in now, which, I mean, there is no shortage of criticism. You say you have one take on something as simple as, you know, the Leafs power play, and it's like everyone's ready to tear you apart just for thinking something different than someone else.
The knives are out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I think it just prepared me for dealing with that. And I think too, when I first started out, I watched every single thing I ever did. And I critiqued it, and I brought it to people that I trusted and had them go through those tapes and tell me what I was bad at. And so I think that gave me thick skin, but I think it also taught me in hindsight that like the only way you can ever get better at anything is to acknowledge that you're bad at it and then to work at it.
You're your own worst critic,
That's
right?
a fact.
You're able to kind of fix that.
100%. I think we're all like that, to be honest with you. So that was pretty awesome because that then kind of led you to Sportsnet and Hockey Central. You covered Olympics, World Cup of Hockey, obviously to the NHL and doing stuff with TNT. So kind of take us from that next step. So you win the challenge, and then how does that springboard you to the next level?
So I won the show, and I thought you got a 1-year deal.
Okay.
A 1-year deal to be a sportscaster at, it was the Score television network at the time.
Okay.
And the person that won the season before me, obviously as I started, their year was up.
Gotcha.
And so the season 1 winner was still there. So doing well.
Right.
And then the season 2 winner did not get renewed.
Okay.
So I had this very fresh, like, oh, this is not a guarantee that like you're just here now.
Right.
This is very much, you have a year.
Prove yourself.
And if you prove that you're valuable, you'll stay. And if we don't think it's the right fit, then you won't. And you'll go right back to Forest City living in London, Ontario. So I think right away I had that pressure or that fire in me to be like, okay, I'm not taking any of this for granted. Yep. I gotta take it seriously. And I thought I would be on TV right away. I did a couple of features, went to, practices, Leafs practice. We were in Toronto, went to Leafs practices. I still remember the first story I ever did was on Phil Kessel and Joffrey Lupul because they were like top 5 in scoring or something, if you can believe it at the time.
Right.
Did a whole story on that. And then after doing a couple of pieces, they were like, hey, we're switching things up. You're not going to be on air anymore. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, we're going to put you in the highlight suites and you are going to put highlight packs together. You're going to watch games. You're going to cut the clips. You're going to choose what clips make the highlight pack.
Okay.
And then you're going to write the script and you're going to put it all together and that's going to air in our highlight wheel. And I was upset. I was like, no, like I thought like, I was going to be on TV. I was going to be like going to games, doing interviews. Like I'm 5 steps away from like being like an in-game reporter in my mind.
Right.
But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I watched 5 or 6 games every single night.
Okay.
I had to tell the stories. I had to pay attention to the inner workings of how a game starts one way and finishes another. And so for me, I've never been more knowledgeable about sports than that year that I was cutting highlights. Because I was doing hockey, baseball, soccer, curling. Like I was doing highlight packs for everything. But it forces you to pay attention to teams that you otherwise maybe wouldn't. And so I think it prepared me for an audition that came a year later to do the weekend highlight desk. And having that experience, I think prepared me for that situation where I was like, I can voice a highlight pack. I effing build these things.
Right.
Of course I can.
CFL expert.
So it was really like in hindsight, I didn't like the decision at the time, but it's probably, I would say up there in a top 3 decision that was ever made for me in my career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that transition to now doing stuff with NHL as well as WWE? Because obviously you're huge now with both of those worlds. So how did those 2 worlds collide?
So it all started in the States with NHL Network. So I was at Sportsnet. I started doing the highlight desk on the weekends. I'm doing like blooper countdown show called Miss Plays of the Month, which was still one of my favorite projects I ever worked on. Plays of the Month. I was doing a wrestling show in Canada. But I wanted to cover hockey. Like that was always what I wanted to do. That was the goal, cover hockey. I wanted to work for Leafs TV. Like I emailed every single NHL team when I got out of college. Every single one asking for an internship, an interview. Is there anything that I can do online? For whatever, not every team then had their own like digital group or whatever. But I emailed every single team. I only had one team out of, I guess at the time would have been 30. Email me back. And it was the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is kind of weird.
Interesting.
They're like Leafs TV side. Yep. But anyways, I say all that to say like that was what I wanted to do. And I wasn't doing that. Like I was doing hockey highlights on the weekend, but I wasn't going to the games, wasn't covering the games. So I had been knocking on that door asking for an opportunity. I did a stint where I did like 12 American Hockey League games. Okay. Loved that. Thought it would lead to an opportunity to maybe do some NHL games. And it just wasn't happening. And I understand why. I don't hold it against anyone there because in Canada, like that's the golden, everyone wants that. That's football. That's covering the NFL in Canada, covering hockey. So there was no spot for me. Where was I going to go? There was 2 places to work. And they had and still have brilliant people doing their broadcasts. So it just became clear to me I might have to wait a really long time before I get a sniff at this at the pro level. And it was around that time that I got an agent and he was like, what would it take for you to leave Toronto? You're doing a lot of, I was hosting 7 shows at the time.
Wow.
None hockey though. Right. And I had done a couple of little things. Like I did a show with Brad May for like 2 months and like little things here and there, but nothing permanent. And he was like, what would you leave for? And I said, there's 2 things that I would leave my current spot for. NHL Network or any like hockey job that is either in a major market like a Boston, a New York, Chicago, or on a national level covering hockey. Or I would go to MLB Network. Those were it. And it took maybe 4 months later, maybe 5 months later, I got an audition at NHL Network, at MLB Network, and I had an audition at CBS Sports. And so I did all of those in a 48-hour period. And then that was my start in the States to covering hockey. And really NHL now, I think being a talk show and having a voice, and I will give myself a little credit, like putting myself out there and being like, I'm going to say what I think and have an opinion and just like not be afraid to be in the mix, good or bad, is what led to everything I'm doing now, honestly. It really is.
So how did the WWE fold into all of this?
So,
because I mean, again, having such a passion for hockey and wanting to be so involved with hockey, how did that transition to you being so involved with WWE?
So in Canada, before I was even on the highlight desk or anything like that, one of the first opportunities that I got while being in a dark suite cutting highlights for a year was, hey, we have an opening for this wrestling show. It was a show that every week would talk about whatever happened on Raw and SmackDown. And so wrestling fans will know the name Renee Young. So Renee Paquette, her real name, was the host at the time. She was leaving to go work for WWE. So there was an opening. And my boss called me and said, hey, what do you know about wrestling? And I said, I know that I loved The Rock and Stone Cold about 10 years ago when I was a kid. And like had a crush on Jeff Hardy and Lito was a badass. Like that's what I know. And he was like, well, listen, it's kind of like a soap opera. Watch it for a month. You'll know what's happening. Right. And he goes, this is an opportunity for you to host a show on TV. Wow. Do you want it? And I said, sure. And so I started doing that once a week. I did that show for 4 years, maybe. Something like that. And so WWE is the type of, there's a reason they're so successful.
Sure.
They know anyone that's talking about that product, they are aware. They know what's being said, what's being covered. And that show was supported by WWE. Like we used their footage. We had the rights there for Raw and SmackDown at the time. So anyways, I say all of that. I feel like I'm rambling a lot on this show, but
this is great.
So I did that for a few years. Then I got my dream job hosting my own hockey show at NHL Network. So I leave. No more wrestling for Jackie.
Got it.
But WWE knew who I was already because they know who everyone is that's covering their product. And so I got a call 3 years ago. I was in Montreal for the Stanley Cup final during, I guess it was the second year of the pandemic life. And it was from Michael Cole, who calls play-by-play for WWE and has for like over 25 years, legend. And I'm like, is this really Michael Cole? I thought someone was honestly like pranking me. And he said, listen, I know that you used to cover wrestling back in Canada. We're very aware of who you are. I had been offered a job from them years prior that I didn't take. And he said, listen, we have these shows where you would essentially be doing like a post-game show, but for Raw or SmackDown. We're trying to, create a more sports vibe. Would you be interested? And I said, where is it? And he said, Connecticut. And I was like, okay, that's like an hour and a half from Jersey. And I said, can I still do my hockey show every day? And he was like, yeah, you can just do this on the side, Monday nights, Friday nights. And I was like, my schedule is going to be insane, but I'm insane. So let's do it. And I just thought it would be a fun opportunity. Like, I don't like saying no to things.
Sure.
So I was like, yeah, if I don't have to leave hockey, then let's do it. And then it's just been a whirlwind, amazing experience.
So the NHL, they didn't have any issue with you doing the WWE?
No. In fact, what ended up happening was they actually let me work a 4-day work week. So I would work Tuesday to Friday. Because Mondays are late. That Raw doesn't even go off the air till 11.
Right.
So your post show is going on at 11:05.
Got it.
I'm not getting home till almost 1.
Right.
So they're like, how about you take Mondays off, work Tuesday to Friday on NHL now? And they were very, very supportive. I have nothing but good things to say about them in that regard. And so I did that for 2 years. I did both of those things. Plus I added TNT. So I was third line grinder for life over here.
Yeah, but I mean, you've earned every single thing that you've, all the success. You've earned all of that.
So has self-described wild and crazy Taz, has that approach on air ever gotten you in trouble?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've had slaps on the wrist numerous times.
Okay.
More so when I was first starting out. I think, I've done it long enough now that I think I've earned a little bit of credibility in terms of being, I did a segment called Feisty Friday, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I'm most proud of. I think I'm more proud of that segment than I am covering Stanley Cup finals. I'm just really proud of it.
It's yours, right?
It's mine.
Yeah,
I wrote it. I produced it. And I never am the type of person, if I have an opinion, you have to agree with it. It's not, I've never been that. I just want everyone to be okay with me having one.
Right.
And so that's why that segment was so important for me. And I just think for girls and women to feel like they can have a seat at the table. You can have an opinion on, who the Leafs are starting in their next game. It's okay.
Right.
It's hockey. You can, no one has to agree with you, but you can put it out there. So yeah, I think I've had slaps on the wrist for sure. In terms of criticizing maybe a little bit too much certain teams. I won't out anybody here, but it has happened in my life where people have called and been like, I think Jackie was a little bit harsh about this and
fair enough.
That sort of thing.
Right.
But it's okay.
Do you have to hide your favoritism towards the Leafs at all? Or do you let that kind of fly? Because we see on TNT, Biz is very open about supporting the Leafs. And do you ever feel like that's...
I'll say this, and I'm not afraid to say this, Paul. Biz does it better, but I did it first.
Damn.
I have been open about my Leafs fandom my entire career. And when I first started out, I did have people say, hey, you shouldn't do that. People aren't going to take you serious. And I said, listen, as much respect as I have for serious journalists and insiders and people that are covering that aspect of hockey, it's important. We need it. It's whatever. I've never been trying to be a serious journalist. I'm not trying to be a team's beat reporter. I'm not trying to be an insider. I'm just trying to be someone that loves the game, that shares that love of the game and promotes the game.
Sure.
With
Relatable.
that passion.
You're a fan.
I'm trying to be a personality,
at heart,
right?
You're a fan.
I am
relatable.
a fan who happened to luck out into this weird, amazing life. And so for me, that's all I've always led with that. And I remember when I first started again, trying to break into hockey, one of the pieces of criticism or feedback that I got was that I didn't stay in the box. We just don't know if we can put her on NHL. She just doesn't stay in the box. And to be fair, this is 12 years ago. It was a different time.
Right.
But I had a conversation with my dad and with my sister. And I was like, maybe I need to be more serious. Maybe I do need to be Joe the broadcaster and do that and not laugh or have fun or because at the time I was interviewing people and joking around and laughing. It just wasn't as
buttoned up,
accepted, especially for a woman, because if you're God forbid, if you're laughing at something a player says that is funny, you're immediately flirting. They can't be funny. It's not an option.
Right.
So
Or you're hearing Vasi fart during an interview.
That was not. That was Wani. That was Wani.
Anyway,
we heard.
That's another story.
But yeah, I remember having a conversation, and I remember my dad and my sister both being like, listen, you can be successful being something that you're not, but will you be happy?
Right.
Or you could try to do it being you, and if you fail, at least you know you failed being you.
Right.
Correct.
So that's kind of where.
So to back it up a little bit, you are fine supporting the Leafs and making that well known.
Right.
I don't know if I'm fine. I'm quite traumatized, but
you've been cursed with cursed with the Leafs for whatever reason. Some people
and some fans still don't like that I'm that open about it. They don't think it's professional, and that's okay. They're allowed. You know what? Right. They are allowed to want their broadcasters to be.
But it's like you said,
straight.
It's some fans. That's just some fans, and lots of fans are okay with it
for sure.
Are there teams that you are like, ooh, yuck, I hate them? Because if you have it one way, you can't have it both ways.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of the more hilarious things that has happened to me on a couple of occasions is being called out for my Leafs fandom by actual coaches in the league while they're in the league. In a very fun way, though.
Okay.
No one's ever been mean or anything.
Right.
But I'll never forget, and I don't remember the details, but I'll never forget being in a scrum, doing a game, And after morning skate, Bruce Cassidy just flat out called him. Like someone asked him about a call in a previous game. And the previous game had been against the Leafs.
Okay.
And he answered the question as like, yeah, I bet you didn't like that. Hey, Jackie. And like, just like called me out, which I love and respect him for. And then, John Cooper, obviously with the Lightning being as relevant as they have been over the course of my whole career, really. Yep. He has had fun at my expense as well. In particular, last year leading up to the postseason, at one point he was like, hey, we had a game. Yeah. We had I think it was Tampa, Carolina, maybe.
Okay.
What was the game that followed the game where Coop benched the entire top line in the third period? Do you guys remember?
Oh, man.
Who were they playing?
It was Carolina.
Was it Carolina?
Yeah, I think it was.
Anyway, besides the point, but I just took a trip down memory lane there. He was like, do you know what you're going to be doing in the playoffs? And I was like, oh, I won't know for a while. He's like,
yeah, you do.
You think you'll be on our series? And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, but if I am, like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm like, I'll be fair. He's like, hey, you better be good to us too, not just the Leafs. If you get Leafs bolts, you better be good to us. And then I didn't get that series. The only game I did of that series was actually Game 6.
Okay.
Which was a great game to be at for me. Maybe not so much
Come
for you
on,
guys.
Jackie.
But I have been called out a couple times.
Can we talk about the fans? And I want to know a little bit about the difference you've found between WWE fans and hockey fans. Because I think there's maybe some differences, maybe some similarities.
There's definitely similarities. I think that hockey fans, what I love about hockey fans, especially, and they're like this in Canada too, but in the States as well, hockey fans, I think, get a bad rap in the States because maybe it's not as big as football here, hockey, but the fans are ride or die.
Facts.
Like you don't meet casual hockey fans in the States. You meet hockey fans in the US, they are like do or die for their team.
They're all in.
I don't know if you guys agree with that.
100%.
I think they are all the way in.
Yes.
No casuals here in Florida or the States, I don't think. So I've always loved that about American fans, and I think WWE is the same way. But because of that passion, because of how much they love their teams and they love the sport, they can also be the most vicious.
Right.
So like they're very vocal when they don't like something or something's not going well. So I think those would probably be the similarities.
All right.
I'd like hockey fans to bring more chants into the mix. I like chants. Yeah. It's one thing WWE does well.
They do. I mean, I guess certain fan bases have really good chants.
You could make that happen.
I mean, the Sticks of Fire crew here, like we're always trying to,
I love chants.
All right. I will put that out there now. So let's talk a little bit about our hockey team here, Tampa Bay Lightning. Sure. Like you just mentioned over the last decade, what as a professional has intrigued you the most over the last decade? And I do want to thank you because I feel like you have been one of the biggest proponents of Nikita Kucherov and giving that man his flowers, as they say, and praising him, because it seems like the rest of the hockey world is just so focused on Nathan MacKinnon and Connor McDavid. And I feel like Cooch doesn't get the national attention, but I feel like you've been one of the proponents that's pushed towards Cooch getting that love. But what about this team has intrigued you the most over the last 10 years?
I think for me, and I think we've seen numerous examples of it in the league over the last 6-7 years, is like things turn on a dime. Like a team can be really good and then all of a sudden they're not in the mix or they're fighting for the, like, to me, like the Toronto Maple Leafs have had like quite a turn, right? In the last couple of years.
Sure.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. But you also look at Colorado 6-7 years ago, they were like historically bad, really bad. Right. And now, they've won a cup, they've been competitive. I think it's very hard to be a consistent contending team, a consistent playoff team for as long as the Tampa Bay Lightning have. I mean, this core, when were they in the final against the Hawks? Was that 2015?
Yes.
That's almost 10 years ago. Same coach, same core, right?
Yep.
Stamkos, Kucherov, like
Edmund, Vazzy.
Yeah. So to me, it's like to have the same core-ish, the same coach for that extended period of time, and to have all of that success. And it's not just about the back-to-back cups. It's about being in the conference finals, being in a final in 2015. Here they are now. They're supposed to be taking a huge step back. And while they're not, at the top of the league, things are not coming as easy. They're here. Right. I think that's what it is for me. It's just the consistency. Like what other team in the last 10 years has stayed that consistent?
None.
Can you name one?
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Is there another one? I mean, even I know it's hard because no one's got the Pens had back-to-back cups, but look at the Pens now.
Right.
Right?
Does not have the same success.
In terms of just the longevity of being a top, 10.
We are definitely biased.
Well,
I know.
Facts,
but am I
it's
making
facts.
sense? I'm
No,
trying
it's
to,
fact.
because I know people on Twitter are going to be like, oh, well, obviously they have back. I'm like, I'm not talking about the cups. I'm talking about all those years around the cups.
Right.
It's been almost 15, 12 years, really, right?
Easily 12 years of the consistency. And I mean, you can speak to it because you were part of those teams. But yes, I think that's the biggest surprise, I think, to the hockey world. And it's crazy, too, because people, I feel like the traditional hockey markets, they hate the fact that hockey in the South has thrived, whether that's Carolina, Nashville, Tampa, Florida, I mean, Dallas, you name it. I feel like it chaps their hide that hockey in the South has thrived for so long, but especially the Lightning and the fact that we've had much success. So do you have any pointers? Because my cohort here is now doing some work with Bally Sports as a former player, also filling in on our Lightning broadcast. Do you have any pointers maybe for Mr. Coburn on his newfound
I got to get
career?
myself on a reality show. That's
Yeah,
what
maybe
I was going to say don't flirt with the players, but I mean,
I can't help myself. I can't help myself.
I've seen him from time to time looking at.
Have you seen Braden Point's Crocs? Oh my
you know
God.
what? I think one of the best things that I was told early on and that I really adhere to and still remind myself of is like, go based on what you know. You know what I mean? Like, talk about from your own personal experience. I think that's, especially someone like you, like that is the value that you can provide that like I could never talk about what happens in a room or how teams galvanize around, a losing streak or losing an important player or, a trade that shocks the room, like whatever it might be. Like, I just think you speaking from your own experience is the best thing that you can do. And then also just like, don't feel like you have to prove anything. You know what I mean? Like, you're there for your experience as a player and your expert opinion on the game that you have spent your entire life playing and being around. So that would be mine. But yeah, I think when I first started, I tried to like prove how much I knew. And like, that was just, it's not good TV. Like you don't have to like throw all these stats out all the time.
Well, one of the things I love about Jackie is she's always having fun.
Yes.
Like you're watching, you're like, she's having fun. Like this isn't a job. She's legitimately having fun. So
I try.
I appreciate it.
I try to make my interviews that way too. So
all right, but I know we're running a little long, and we're going to run into fact and fiction. But you've worked with a couple of former Bolts that have been here: Ryan Callahan, Brian Boyle. Tell us about those guys, how they're doing.
Oh my gosh, they're awesome. Callie was great to work with. He worked at NHL Network with us like right after he finished playing. So he was great, so passionate like about the game, legitimately, and such a big supporter of his former teams too. Like, really wanted to see his former teammates do well, which I always really respected. But he sees the game so well, and he is so good at bringing that knowledge and that passion, I think.
Explaining stuff. Yeah,
he's very well articulated. So like, sometimes if I talk to a player or a coach especially, they'll be talking about something and I'll be like, just like, am I understanding this right? And I'll repeat back, like, this is how I'm taking this.
Sure.
Let me know if I'm taking it wrong. Like, am I fully understanding what you're talking about, especially when it comes to systems and different things that teams are doing. But I think Callie's very good at explaining things in a way that anyone can understand, right? Like a casual fan. Not everyone sitting at home is Ryan Callahan, right?
Callahan, layman terms. Here we go.
Right?
And then Boyle, what a good dude. Another guy that like his passion, like he cares about the game. Not that other people don't, but I just think like you can still, like that guy still wishes he was playing.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Like that guy, I am willing to put myself out there and say this. He has not said this to me, but like if someone said, hey, could you play for us? I honestly think he would play. Like I do.
I agree with that sentiment.
I really think that he misses
Fact or fiction?
The game.
Fact.
I think he's having a great time with Rupper and them on the show this year. But yeah, he's a diehard and a great dude, and his family is amazing. And he's funny, like he's sneaky funny too. Yeah,
I've run into him a few times at some of our NHL events.
He's one of those guys when you were playing with them, and Brian Boucher was another one like that. You're like, oh my God, dude, these guys are going to be on TV after they're done.
For sure.
You just kind of knew.
Bouch is unreal. Bouch is one of my favorite people.
Who were some of your broadcasting influences, like when you were growing up? Like people.
Oh my gosh. Well, when I was really young, I just wanted to be Don Cherry.
Without the jackets?
Yeah, like I just loved Coach's Corner. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, as every Canadian kid that had any interest in hockey whatsoever, I mean, that was like
He was a guy.
ritual viewing, legitimately.
The game's on mute till intermissions, you know?
Yeah.
All right, what does he got to say tonight?
You know, Christine Simpson is somebody that I watched a lot when I was a kid. There wasn't as many women covering the game when I was younger, so I don't really think I had a ton of major influences. Like I said, Cassie Campbell was somebody that I loved, but I was never trying to be a hockey player. Sure. My sister wanted to be a hockey player. I was playing hockey because I thought it was fun, you know?
For sure.
But as I got older, I think I had some bigger influences, you know, Katie Nolan, way back when she first started. Like I was watching Katie Nolan when she was just on YouTube. Like I'm a original Katie Nolan stan. I think she's amazing just because she puts herself out there.
Sure.
And I think when I was a kid, very few women that were number one, even doing it. And then number two, to be doing it with flair and personality. It just wasn't as big. So I always liked Katie Nolan. I feel like I'm missing someone right now. It's okay. Bothering me.
No worries. If it comes to
I'll think of it and then I'll tweet it.
That's fine.
I'll be like, I forgot to say this person.
All right, Jackie, but I know we've kept you way long here.
I feel like
but
I'm rambling.
No, but this
rambling?
is great. I mean, this is awesome conversation. We've taken too much of your time as it is because we know
only
Royal
Jackie
Rumble.
Redmond and Steven Stamkos.
You guys can do as you want.
We keep going.
All right, so Jackie.
Stammer sticking up for Kucherov last night. I loved that. I loved that.
It's a fantastic squad that we have right now. All right. So we do a segment, Jackie, called Fact or Fiction, presented by our friends at Highlight IPA. And so basically these are simply true or false. These are true or false statements. But pay attention because sometimes we throw a little there's like details that may not quite be right.
I'm going to be terrible at this.
Here we go. Fact or fiction, Jackie Redmond, your husband once rescued a bald eagle.
That's fact, and he's done it more than once.
What?
Yeah.
What?
He is the eagle whisperer. It's wild.
So what? How does that even happen?
So my husband owns an extreme adventure rafting company.
Okay.
And so we live near the Bay of Fundy. They have the highest tides in the world. I'm going to try to make this super not long. Highest tides in the world. His company takes people on motored boats to ride the wave effect of that tide. So the tide goes into the Bay of Fundy, then into this small little river, creates waves on a bad day, 5 feet, on a good day, like 16, 17 foot waves. Picture like a roller coaster on water, but there's a ton of wildlife out there, in particular bald eagles. And so he was training people how to operate a tour and do a tour. And he saw this eagle having trouble like getting out of the water. So he went over and grabbed the eagle, like a brave dude, I will say. And he rescued the eagle, and the people in the boat were filming it and doing this whole thing. And I had actually landed off of a flight, and I land to these messages about like, it's him with an eagle. I'm like, what is happening right now? I go with him to bring it to this wildlife center that's not far from his company. And we brought it there, and they rehabilitated the bird. And then he got to release the bird out into the wild, and the dodo picked up the story. And more people ask me about Emmett and these eagles than like anything else. Like I'll be like, show up to a game for TNT, and like,
how's the eagle?
Literally, like people will be like, was that your husband that was, rescuing the eagle? I'm like, yeah, that's him.
Hey,
He's
Victor
great.
Hedman and your puppies, eat my heart out.
Yeah.
Bald eagles, baby.
But yes,
we're Eagle family here.
That is factual.
Okay.
Look, if you haven't seen it, look it up.
Okay, look it up. All right.
And if you're ever in Nova Scotia, go out with the Shuby River Wranglers. It's the only place in the world you can do that type of rafting, and it's so fun.
Shout out. Okay. Wow. Fact or fiction, Jackie Redmond, you prefer, I should say. Prefer.
I prefer.
You prefer Lord of the Rings over Harry Potter any day of the week.
No, Harry Potter.
That's fiction.
All right.
I heard you were a big Harry Potter person.
Did you?
I did. Is that true?
Wow. I would say it's partially true.
Okay.
I'd say that I had a very big Harry Potter phase.
Okay.
I'm
Didn't
not
we all?
like, yeah, listen, if you didn't have a Harry Potter phase, I'm kind of wondering.
Are you
maybe.
even living?
Yeah, like who raised you? But yes, I'd go Harry Potter. But I loved Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
I didn't watch Lord of the Rings until I met my husband.
Oh, wow.
I never watched Lord of the Rings, and he was like, "You need to watch Lord of the Rings."
Okay, but
so
Harry Potter.
we did a Marvel movie marathon.
Oh, very nice.
Every single movie in order.
Wow.
I had seen some of them, obviously. I mean, I'm not a total loser, but I hadn't seen all of them. So he's like, let's do this. This is going to be a thing that we do. So we did Marvel. And then once we did that, I was like, that's really fun. Let's do it with something else. And he was like, have you seen Lord of the Rings? And I was like, I don't really know if I'll like it. And he's like, no, you will like it.
Yeah.
And so we watched it, and it was great.
Very cool. All right, moving on. Fact or fiction, You have a great relationship with a big WWE fan who also happens to be an NHL coach.
All capital facts.
Okay. And who was the coach?
Bruce Boudreau.
Why does he love WWE so much?
He is a diehard WWE guy. He just, listen, like I said, wrestling fans are ride or die. They're like, if you are a big wrestling fan, you are a big wrestling fan. And Bruce is. I mean, when I first discovered this, we were doing a show. We went to commercial break on NHL Now. And he goes, are you working for WWE? And I go, oh yeah. And he goes, I love wrestling. And I immediately assumed he was going to be like, oh yeah, I used to love Andre the Giant and
Hulk
like,
Hogan,
you know, whatever, Ultimate Warrior. Like I was like, oh, this guy liked it in the past.
Right.
And then he starts talking to me like what happened on Raw that week. And I'm like, oh, you're like a big wrestling
You're
fan.
one of those people.
Yeah, I'm like, you're like a diehard. And, you know, him and I, we always kind of like clicked right away. Because he's a great, anyone that meets Bruce, like he's a really like a good human.
Sure.
But yeah, that definitely bonded us even more. And I'm so glad that I was able to get him some big WWE experiences with Kevin Owens and some other things.
I have one fact or fiction that I brought to the table here, Jackie.
Give it to me.
You are okay with, or you would be welcoming to a folding chair being hit with a folding chair in WWE. They could write that into the script and you'd be okay with that.
Like you're doing a report and then all of a sudden
like
boom,
you're in the show.
Listen, I have never felt closer to showbiz in my life. And I'm getting asked these types of questions a lot now. And at Triple H, if you ever happen to stumble across this interview, listen, if you need me to take a bump, as we say in WWE, I will take the bump. I will do that. How cool would it be to be able to be like, oh, like Rhea Ripley hit me with a chair. Like I was like, oh my God, badge of honor. Like so great, you know?
I love that.
Where do you draw the line? Like falling off a ladder or like, they go pretty extreme.
I think jumping off of like a steel cage is probably something I would not have the guts to do.
Those guys are athletes, man. Holy
Say it louder, because one thing that bothers me so much, aside from the like it's fake whole thing, is like they don't get respect as athletes because what they do is more performative, but like what they're doing is still unbelievable on their bodies. Like I'm like, you go out and be thrown through tables and like thrown around the ring 4 or 5 times a week and tell me that these guys aren't athletes in their own right. Like yes, it's not the same as playing hockey or playing football, but it is demanding of your body.
Well, we are very fortunate. Tampa is the hotbed of wrestling.
They all are here.
Yeah, they're all here.
Hey, Royal Rumble this weekend.
You
guys should go.
You have
a
hockey.
game. You have a game.
Gasparilla. You know about Gasparilla?
Oh, I know about Gasparilla.
All right, 2 more. We got 2 more, Jackie. All right, fact or fiction? You once interviewed Peyton Manning at a Rangers game.
That is fiction. Okay. I interviewed Eli Manning. Was it a Rangers game?
No.
Devils game. Yeah, it was a Devils game. But they were playing the Rangers, right?
I don't know. You tell me. You were there. I wasn't.
I don't remember. I don't remember who they were playing.
I don't know.
I think it was I honestly think it was round 1 of the playoffs last year.
Was he a good interview, Eli?
He was great. Yeah. He was really great. Actually, one of my regrets, I don't always ask people for pictures because I just feel like I don't want to be like awkward.
Sure.
I've gotten better about it. Eli Manning, get the picture. Yeah. What are you doing?
Was he gonna say no?
Yeah, he wouldn't have. He's the nicest. But, like, you got to get a photo with Eli Manning.
Drop the ball. You fumbled the bag, as they say in this one.
I did fumble the bag.
And finally, Jackie, in 2018, you won a Canadian Screen Award for Best Sports Host in a sports program or series.
That's fiction.
It's not true.
That's not true.
Why are people lying on the internet, Brayden?
Well, I mean, what is that? I mean, like, I want to know where that's being said, because maybe I'll retweet it. Maybe I'll just push it.
Maybe we can start a campaign and get you there. You know,
2024 Screen Actor Award should go to Screen Award.
Please, that'd be great.
Listen, Jackie, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for taking time. We know you're extremely busy. You have a lot going on this weekend. We appreciate all the positivity you give about our Tampa Bay Lightning. I know you're going to be in a heated battle, because I know the Lightning and Toronto are neck and neck this season. So it's going to be a battle.
Do we have to do it again?
I mean, it's heading that way. So
and if we see you getting thrown out of the ring in Royal Rumble, we are going to be so happy, because we're going to that's going to be the block party bump, like translating into other
I don't want to like cause a storm or anything or any speculation, but like the whole thing about the Rumble is that you don't know who's coming out. There's 30 entrants into the Women's Royal Rumble. Could I be one of them?
Wow.
You have to watch. You have to
love it.
watch the Royal Rumble to find out.
It teases. That's great.
Well, congratulations
That's right.
on all your success. Your new show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let us know, when is it on? Like, plug
So
it.
every Friday on the NHL's YouTube page is when it will drop. There is no episode. So we have a new episode dropping today with Philip Forsberg, who was an unreal interview. Great guy. As well as Chelsea Green, who is a WWE superstar, a Canadian WWE superstar, big Canucks fan. And then next week we have no episode because we're going to be at All-Star gathering some content, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, every Friday.
I'll be there with you at All-Star.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
Yeah, we'll see you guys there. So anyways, thank you once again to our friends at Highlight IPA for powering another awesome episode of the Bolts Block Party. We thank Jackie Redmond for being here with us, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.